practice using an if statement. Create a new HTML document and save as whatToWhere.html. Use your exclamation point tab shortcut to get your bulk of your content in. Change the title to what to where and add an H1 that says what to where. You may need to pause the video to copy this over. That's fine. Pause anytime you need to. And let's have a button that asks the user to input today's temperature. So we'll do input type equals button, the value, enter today's temperature, and I'll give it an ID of button just for the sake of today's project. Now let's have a script section. We are going to create a new function called getTemperature or getTemp. That'll be easier to type. And inside this function, we are going to ask the user to enter the temperature. If the temperature is below freezing, we are going to tell them that it may snow today. They want to dress warmly or want to wear warm clothes. How's that? Okay. So let's prompt the user, and we're not going to do math, even though it is a number. We're not going to do math per se with this temperature. So we don't have to parse int or parse float. Let's store it in a variable called temperature. So var temp equals prompt enter today's temperature. Okay, so I said if the temperature is below freezing, then we need to tell the user that it may snow today and that they want to dress warmly, okay? So how could we write that as a test condition? I'm going to give you a hint. We already need an if statement. Remember, we talked about that in the lecture. We need an if statement, and then we need a test condition. So what could be a test condition for is the temperature below freezing? What about temp less than 32 degrees? Okay. If the temp is less than 32 degrees, we'll do a set of curly braces. And just for the purposes of this project, because we're just focusing on learning the if statement right now, not how to make things look super pretty on our page. Let's just use a document.write. And I may not have told you this before, but you can actually write HTML statements to your document. So let's do a paragraph tag. Now, the problem with this is your paragraph tags, since they have to be in your quotation marks, will not automatically close for you. So you'll have to make sure that you type them correctly. Okay, so we'll say paragraph, it may snow today. And then we'll close that paragraph tag. And don't forget that semicolon. Now, why didn't I include a semicolon after our test condition? Because technically this is an extension of that same if statement. What's in our curly braces is an extension of this if statement. So you do not have a semicolon after your test condition. Then on another line, let's do another paragraph. You should wear warm clothes in another paragraph. So if the temperature is below freezing, we're going to write to the page, it may snow today, you should wear warm clothes. All right, remember a function in and of itself does not do anything until we call the function. Now that you are starting to see multiple sets of curly braces in your script, you need to make sure that you always call the function outside of itself. You can't call the function while you're inside the function. Okay? So I have a set of curly brackets here. if you click on the curly brackets in code, it highlights which curly bracket is its partner, okay? So when I click here, it's saying this curly bracket is its partner. When I click here, it says this curly bracket is its partner. You see that happening? See how they're highlighted, okay? All right, I need to be outside of my function curly bracket before I can call my function. So here, and press enter, okay? Now we're going to use that same method that we used in the last chapter to access this button and then execute this function on a click. So we'll do document.getElementById. The name of our ID is button. We want to add an event listener, and on click, we want to execute the function getTemp, and we include that false statement, semicolon. Okay? So pause this if you need to. Make sure that your code appears like mine. And let's check this in the browser. Okay, so I'm going to refresh, enter today's temperature. Okay, my prompt comes up. So if I say it's 20 degrees outside, brr, it's cold. Click OK. It may snow today. You should wear warm clothes appears on the screen. But if I refresh, enter today's temperature, and I enter 32 degrees, nothing happens because we didn't tell anything to happen. The code does exactly what we told it to do. We said if the temperature was less than 32, do this. Otherwise, we didn't tell it to do anything else. Now, here's a good point in time for me to bring up what I mentioned about the curly brackets, okay? So I'm going to add a couple of spaces here. You don't have to do this on your program. Just watch along. I mean, you're welcome to, but remember I said in the lecture that you do not have to have curly brackets, but if you don't include curly brackets, it will only write the first line of code for the if statement, okay? So let's watch what happens if I run this again. So, whoop. I'm going to refresh, enter today's temperature. I'll say 20 degrees like I did before. Click OK. It may snow today. You should wear warm clothes just as it did before. But then if I refresh, enter today's temperature, I like a balmy 80 degrees. If I click OK, you should wear warm clothes when it's 80 degrees outside. Huh, I didn't tell that to happen. That's because if you don't include curly brackets, only the first line of code executes, and this line of code does execute. No matter if the temperature is true or if this condition is false, this line of code is going to execute. Okay, so we need to make sure that we always include those curly brackets. And eventually, you'll be working with a lot of curly brackets. These curly brackets will be confusing, so get used to them now. Because woo, are they fun when we get to the next book. Okay, so how about we make this, instead of just having a single alternative statement, this would be a single alternative statement. What if we turn this into a dual alternative statement? So that would be if we had if, and if the condition is true, this code executed, but if this condition was false, some other code executed. Okay, so to do that, we add the keyword else. This is a JavaScript keyword. And again, for the sake of just making things easy, we're always going to include our curly brackets. So if the condition is above freezing, let's say it won't snow today. I'm just going to have one statement there. So that's all we're going to do with this dual selection statement or dual decision statement. Let's refresh this in the browser. And again, if we enter 20 degrees, it's going to be, it may snow today. You should wear warm clothes, as it did in the previous examples. But if we enter today's temperature and we say it's 70 degrees, it won't snow today. If we said it's 32 degrees, it won't snow today. Okay? And basically anything above 32, we'll say it won't snow today. I'd like to point out, well, two things actually that I want to point out that I missed during the tutorial. If we were in the classroom together, I would have noticed this, or one of my students would have noticed this, and we could have corrected it immediately. But recording these videos, I'm so focused on trying to teach the content that I forgot this syntax. So I missed a semicolon here, and I missed a semicolon here. I would count off for that. Make sure you include it, okay? So each line of code needs a semicolon except for our ifs and elses right now, and our functions. Let's take a look at what your project should look like once you finish it. So we have a web page with a Can You Vote H1 and a button that says enter your enter age. When you click the button, it's prompted for how old you are. If I enter 15, it says you can't vote yet. If I refresh it, and if I enter 18, it says you are old enough to vote. And then, of course, any age older than 18. So if I said 40, you are old enough to vote. Okay, so you try this on your own. Make sure you include those semicolons, but you can use the temperature project, what to wear, as a reference for this project.